let's talk a little bit about the drafts, Pete, and who's drafting who, shall we?
Well, yeah, let's do it, John. And you and I will just go back and forth on this one. We're only going to do the top 5, but I thought it would be kind of fun to have a mock draft, right? I mean, it's a good time to do that. So I'm going to start it off. And the first pick in the 2023 NFL draft goes to the Houston Texans. And I think it should be CJ Stroud from Ohio State. They need a quarterback. We've seen what quarterbacks can do to change things. And what I like about this kid is he had 42 touchdowns. He had 6 interceptions this year. The fact that he doesn't throw interceptions. I mean, when you consider how many times this guy put the ball in the air to great people, he has great people around him. Let's never deny that. But this guy is unbelievable, John, about his accuracy, and the fact that he's not turning over the ball tells me that he could be a guy at the NFL level. And I think he really should be the first pick. His size is there, his strength is there, and what he's able to do as a quarterback, I think, really does fit a team that's struggling, much like what you guys have had in Chicago, to be honest with you, and again, Ohio State. But what do you think? Do you like that pick, or do you think it should be somebody else, Bryce Young or somebody
I
else?
know a lot of people, Pete, are saying Bryce Young, but he is much more of a quarterback. Bryce Young is, with the Heisman and all that. He's much more of he's not as small as Russell Wilson, Pete, but he is significantly smaller than CJ Stroud. There ain't no doubt about that. Both of them are going to go top 5, I think. Top 5, definitely top 8. And it's just a question. Do you want the guy that's 6'3" that can see over the line, or are you willing to take a shot on a guy like Bryce Young, who's much more like a Tua kind of player, isn't he? I mean, but by Pete, until I spoke with you, was basically the Bears, they keep telling me, are going to take a rush edge guy from, whatever team they think ends up having the best opportunity. Will Anderson is the guy that I keep hearing from from Alabama. Yeah. He's a great rush, guy. He's whatever, 6'4", 6'5", 245 pounds, runs like a deer. But unfortunately, the Bears used to be known for their defense, Pete, but now they've sort of gone away from that. But I don't know that going for a rush edge guy is the guy you should take with the number 2 pick in the draft. I'm a different guy than that, I guess.
Well, the only reason I disagree, John, it doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong or vice versa, but the only reason I would disagree is this. The Bears have 13 sacks on the season. There are 6 players in the NFL who have more sacks than the entire Bears team. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of, and let me tell you, it gives you an idea of just how bad the defense is right now. So they've got to do something. And I think that they've got some big guys in the middle that are pretty daggone good. But they got to get after the quarterback. That is a very meaningful thing. On a third down, you get a guy who can get around the corner like that. I think Will Anderson's the right guy because of his size. You pointed out, when you look at the guy and you see him on the field, he looks like he's 6'2", 220. That's how he moves. The guy's 6'5", almost, 6'4", 6'5", 250 pounds, and runs like a daggone deer. So I think that he's the right guy, I think, now. And I only want to put him there in that second pick, John, because they got to improve that defense. By improving that defense, it's going to help out the offense. And they just don't get any pressure on the quarterback. We're going to go to number 3 then. Seattle. Seattle needs something. And again, this is a team, John, that offensively and with all their draft picks, because of that great trade, Pete Carroll fleeced those guys in Denver like they've never been fleeced when he got rid of Russell Wilson and then got picks. And then he got all the players and all of that. But they need defense. And this is a team that might get into the playoffs, but they still need some defense. They're just not very good on the defensive side, which is not Pete Carroll. So I got Jalen Carter from Georgia. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he's everything in a defensive lineman that you want. And sometimes it has to start from the core. And I think the core being right in that middle 3. And I think this guy, he's a disruptor. I think he fits in really well. And it's, you know what? It sounds crazy to take an edge rusher and then to get a defensive tackle, but that's part of the NFL. That's what puts pressure on those quarterbacks. And if he can get a push, that makes all the difference in the world. So with that third pick in the NFL draft, I'm going to go Jalen Carter.
Yeah. That would be the guy I wanted for the Bears, Pete.
Yeah.
Uh, I wish because, we had Hicks and then we lost him. And I think you only have so many of these big guys that just block everything up, require a double team, which frees up the linebackers. So it's one of the things the Vikings need. It's one of the things the Bears need. They need somebody big, because if you don't have huge linebackers, if your linebackers are just built to stop the pass and not the run, you got to have somebody big in front of them. And this is one of those guys. And there'll be others, but this one, this guy and the guy they had last year for Georgia, who was on the D line, is another. So I think both of them have great pedigrees. I'd love to get either of them. And the Bears could have got both.
Yeah.
The Bears could have got the guy last year, Pete, that went to the Eagles, and then they could get this guy. They'd have bookend tackles that could totally jam up the middle of the field. But in their stupidity, the Bears passed on that.
Well, and I would add the Vikings to that too, John, because they're the worst defense in the entire NFL. Or if they're not the worst, they're somewhere in the bottom three in almost every single category. And they should have not traded down. They should have stayed where they were to get some of these players on the defensive side of the ball. Next up, number 4, pick in the draft, is Arizona. Now, I'm going to go with an offensive tackle, John, this big kid out of Ohio State, Paris Johnson. And the reason I'm going with him is it's tough to figure out which one of the top 3 tackles you should really go with. But the reason I'm going to go with Paris is a lot of people think that he's very, very special. He's got a great athleticism, and he's a guy who likes to kind of push you in the back at the very end of the play, which is something I like. I hated it as a player, as a linebacker, but I love it when I see my guys doing that. And oh, by the way, the quarterback for Arizona, Kyler Murray, he's been sacked over 120 times in 4 years, John. They need to shore up the offensive line. They don't need another receiver. They need another lineman, because too many times he's back there scrambling around and people say, well, all he does is run around. It's because it's a jailbreak. These guys are coming off the ball and they're coming after him, and he's got to start running before he even can get his foot planted on a 3-step drop. It's brutal on their offensive line. That's why I think Paris Johnson's the guy.
Well, he certainly gets high marks, Pete. But we'll have to see exactly, who's available and when they're, what kind of trades happen on top. Because sadly, I think the Bears may trade their pick because they've got a history of doing that, as stupid as it is.